All right, welcome to Lesson 4, Functional Areas and Positions. In this lesson, we're going to break down the structure of the Incident Command System, or ICS, specifically the roles and responsibilities within it. We'll look at who does what and how these positions help keep the response organized. The tool used to manage an incident, and as a new EMT or firefighter, understanding the structure will really help you operate effectively, even if you're not in charge. Let's get into it. So, by the end of this lesson, you should be able to describe the key ICS positions, understand how those roles are activated, and recognize the tools that you'll need. And then we'll introduce you to something called ICS Form 201, and we'll give you some practice with that. Even if you're always, quote unquote, in the field, this understanding helps you support the response and communicate clearly if you know what's going on in the background. So, we start at the top. Incident Commander, or IC. You've heard me say that before in the previous videos. Hopefully this isn't your first video because you have some catching up to do if it is, but we'll get you there either way. The Incident Commander has the legal authority to manage the incident, sets objectives, approves the incident action plan, and orders and releases resources. In small incidents, the Incident Commander or IC may be the only role that's filled. They'll do everything until help arrives or situation grows. If the IC doesn't activate other roles, they're responsible for all functions, operations, planning, logistics, and so on. So even if you're just arriving at scene and you only see one person with a radio and a vest, and they are the incident commander, know that you are reporting to the IC until you're reassigned to somebody else. Why would only one role be filled? Okay, in some situations it's still very early on, but in other situations we have a lot of resources that we come with. We come with a fire engine and an ambulance and a radio that talks to dispatch and other very qualified people, and our battalion chief is available to us if needed. If we recognize that we have the tools already, we have the access to the tools that we already need, and we may already have them on scene, we may not need to activate other things just yet, depending on what's going on. And sometimes we do this in practice for, a fender bender that has, 3 or 4 people involved, and we split up and we try to communicate in this way and manage it as if it was the real deal, even though it is something we can very well handle without ICS, but it helps keep us in practice. And so it's something that a lot of captains that I've worked under that I really like do, because this practice is important. They may appoint a deputy IC, second in command. This person can take over for the IC if, in the next operational period, may represent another agency in like a mutual aid situation, and they can handle specific tasks that are usually assigned to them by the IC. This is super helpful when incidents cross jurisdictions or last more than one shift. We're all human. We recognize our limits. And sometimes these incidents are quite challenging. Deputy IC is there for that. Command staff includes a couple interesting roles. First, public information officer. They're the ones who talk to the media, talk to the public, keep them informed. This keeps, media, camera, TikTok influencers, and everybody else away from hardworking EMTs and firefighters that need to stay focused. If they're anything like me, they have a hard enough time staying focused as it is. Definitely don't need somebody to come put a camera and a light in their face while they're trying to save somebody's life. The safety officer monitors operations for hazards, and the liaison officer coordinates with outside agencies. Nice and simple, these 3 positions make up the command staff. Their roles are only filled if needed. For example, A safety officer might not be activated in a single patient response, but absolutely would be in a major response like a building collapse or something like that. So let's think like a medic. Why might the PIO, Public Information Officer, matter during a major response? Well, media and family members might crowd your scene, other looky-loos. PIO keeps people informed while keeping pressure off of the field crews, and sometimes there's sensitive information that may not want to be released yet, particularly if it's in connection with a crime that will need to be investigated, when this incident is over. And so not every information is, ripe and ready for release at all times. The Public Information Officer knows that. As responders, safety is always a priority. The safety officer looks for hazards like structural collapse, explosions, biohazards, traffic dangers, roadside scenes, all good stuff like that. And safety is constantly evolving. And so that's why this role is a constant role, not just a checklist that one person can do at the start of an incident. They have the authority to stop operations and pull people if they see something unsafe. Another question, liaison officer. The liaison officer connects with the IC and outside partners. Public health, utility companies, law enforcement from another county, all of these things go through the liaison officer. This ensures a coordinated response with no duplication, no conflict, and outside agencies that are not necessarily first responders sometimes have a different way of operating, a different way of communicating, which is why it's helpful to assign somebody to interface with them so that the IC, deputy IC, and other operations chiefs can really kind of stay in their high-level directive mindsets that they need to be. All command staff can have assistants. They support personnel, help with workload, and they can work at camps, bases, checkpoints. They're usually not in command, but they act under the assigned officer, right? It's all part of this kind of common goal that we're going for. This is common at large scale or multi-day events, and sometimes there'll be a pool of assistants that are available so that you can assign a task to 2 or 3 of them and help you develop something in that process. So let's have another discussion. Imagine this freight train derailment, and after this we'll ask ourselves a couple questions. On July 18, 2001, a train carrying hazardous chemicals derailed and caught fire in a downtown Baltimore tunnel, causing near shutdown of the city and burning so hot the firefighters couldn't reach the flames for about 8 hours. At one point, all major highways into the city were blocked off, and a Baltimore Orioles game at nearby Camden Yards was canceled, and the inner harbor was closed to boat traffic. It was a major incident. A water main break near the tunnel added to the chaos, causing collapse of part of a major thoroughfare and power outages throughout the city. Bad news. So what's your recommended course of action? I recognize this might be a lot to bite off and chew at this stage of your academic and your career journey, but think about what ICS positions would be activated. Do you want a PIO? Do you want a safety officer? I think both, yeah. What agencies might need to coordinate outside of their public works, water and power, whatever you call them in your city. Department of Transportation, Department of Building Safety, all of these wonderful agencies will need to coordinate, and use this to think of who might fill command and general staff roles among the different agencies that you could imagine responding to a situation like this. So at some point in time, you will have some assisting agencies. Assisting agencies provide people, equipment, services. For example, a neighboring EMS agency sending 2 ambulances is an assisting agency, so there might be quite a few. A cooperating agency helps somewhat indirectly. They might offer shelter, provide counseling, handle pet evacuations in fire zone, other services and stuff to the community. They're not performing incident operations, but they definitely are essential to community care. Think of agencies like the Red Cross, although the Red Cross is sometimes involved at a higher level. An agency rep is a person sent to the scene to represent their organization. This person coordinates with the liaison officer, speaks on behalf of their agency, and makes decisions about their agency's movements and involvements. It's an important role. And, for certain resources like, hotel vouchers, when people lose their homes and stuff like that, these agency representatives really help guide their agency to ramp up the tasks that are becoming more and more needed. Most incidents start small, like we said before, but some grow very, very fast. When that happens, the IC will add teams, units, divisions, groups, sections, and just kind of expand this accordion with all of these pieces, falling out in line. This helps keep the response organized and within the safe span of control that we talked about in the last video, of being so important. Span of control, organized span of control, and, existing and operating and leading within your means so that you can maintain that span of control. The operations section under the incident commander handles tactical response, firefighting, EMS, law enforcement, big dime things. They direct actions to meet the incident goals. If you're in the field as a medic or a firefighter, you're probably assigned to the operations section. That hopefully is easy to understand. The operations chief or ops chief reports to the IC and manages all boots on the ground response. They set tactical priorities, direct field units, coordinate divisions, groups, staging areas. If you're deployed, this is often your supervisor. Because let's say you're on an engine or a truck. Your captain is still your captain, but they will likely report to operations section chief. If the incident's big enough, operations section chief might put a branch or division chief in between them and your captain. And so see it that way. Think about the unit that you personally operate in, who you report to, and who might be levels above you, in order. A staging area is where ready resources wait to be assigned. If you're an ambulance on standby, waiting for a task, you're in staging, not out of service. Oftentimes this is near base camp at a lot that's proximal to the incident, but not in the way of the incident. There's usually a staging area manager who reports to the operations chief, and that's usually the first step. When you get your assignment, let's say you're an EMT at an ambulance company, they'll usually tell you, oh, you're going to support this fire, blah, 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 report here. And the report location will first be the staging area. You'll check in with the staging manager, and then your assignment and involvement will develop from there. So here's how it looks. You report to your unit leader, your leader reports to the division supervisor, they report to the ops chief, and the ops chief reports to the incident commander. Nice little example, if that makes sense. If not, the graphic below shows where the staging area manager and everything else, health group, whatever, fits into the operations section. Take a look at that, be familiar with it. We'll expand on that in future slides. So next we have divisions and groups. Divisions are geographic, like east side or second floor, and groups would be functional, like EMS triage or traffic control or fire prevention. This helps organize large scenes so nobody gets overwhelmed, and using these terms like east side or second floor and not like, Division 1, Division 2, help other people who are operating near you or with you understand who's who and knows what's being handled, right? It really helps paint a very plain language view and understanding of what's going on so that everyone is kind of most informed. Not that everyone needs to know everything all at once, but by using these common sense terms, everything is just a little bit more intuitive. If you have too many divisions or groups, you can create branches to help manage that span of control. And so, in this example below, each branch has a director. And this helps the operations chief or ops chief, however you want to call it, focus on a strategy where branch directors manage details. You might have an emergency services branch, law enforcement branch, public works branch, all of these things. And within them, more branches. Here's an example. So now we'll do a little activity, and this is to just give you some practice on maintaining span of control by adjusting the ICS organization structure. Using an organizational chart format, identify the supervisory structures, divisions, branches, groups, strike teams, task force, that you would use to ensure proper span of control for the resources currently on scene. And for each organizational unit, you'll indicate the title of its supervisor. If you're playing along at home, you'll definitely need a piece of paper for this. Here's the scenario. A swim meet is being held at Main Street Pool with 30 team members and 50 observers. During a race, a sudden electrical storm sends a lightning bolt into a flagpole near the pool and the charge arcs to the water. The pool is instantly electrified, sending guards and parents into the pool to rescue the children. The primary objectives are saving lives and ensuring safety. On-scene resources include local police, you've got 4 marked units, state police, 2 marked units, fire, 2 engine companies, rescue, 1 company, and EMS, 5 basic life support and 2 advanced life support ambulances. There are 80 plus people on scene with multiple agencies responding. How would you organize the response? What divisions or groups would you set up? Sketch it on a piece of paper or let me know your thoughts in the comments. This is, one of my favorite activities in the entire ICS and NIMS courses. It's really a good one. I know it's hard to do at home sometimes, but if you can push yourself to try this one, I definitely think it's worthwhile. Air operations might be a branch as well. Some incidents need aircraft. For water drops, medevac, surveillance, the air operations branch handles this. It may include air tactical group, which manages what aircraft do in the air, air support group, which manages ground support like fuel, maintenance, helispots, and stuff like that. Planning section collects info and helps build the incident action plan. They can also track resources and plan ahead for the next shift or the next, known challenge that's coming, like high winds or a variety of different things. Rains, winds, whatever. They can keep the big picture in mind and continue to track and advise on, how resources need to be adjusted. Their work ensures that you have what you need when you hit the scene, hopefully. But their work is constantly evolving, just like ours. Planning may include technical specialists like, experts in hazmat or infection control, weather, like meteorologists and stuff like that, aviation experts, you name it. These experts may help set objectives or give critical advice during complex scenes. Some of the units in the planning section may include resources units or a situation unit or even a documentation unit. And in large scenes, you will also have a demobilization unit that will help scale down these operations when certain things, like let's say a massive wildfire, start to become more contained and more in control and predictable. They keep track of what's happening and they prepare for what's next. Planning section is great. Logistics section is next. They provide food, water, radios, fuel, places to rest and sleep, medical care for the first responders coming in from the field, to rehab them so that they can be prepared to go back out. And the facilities as well, bathrooms, command posts, etc. They keep you fed, equipped, connected, so that the mission does not stall as you're waiting for these type of resources that you need. Logistics has a little bit of a split here. Service and support. Service branch would handle communications, responder care, and food, while the support branch handles supply, facilities, and transportation. You may never meet these folks face to face, but you'll definitely use their gear at one point in time or another. Service branch might be made up of units like communications, medical, food unit. We talked about that a little bit. Here's some more on that. And the support branch, supply, facilities, ground support. Here's a little bit more if you want to read on that. Next we have finance/administration. And this section tracks costs, claims, timekeeping, damage reports. They're established when incident management activities require financial and other administrative support services. And then they do all of that. If there's major injury or equipment loss, they're the ones tracking that paperwork. And their work is really vital for recovery and reimbursement, particularly as an incident starts commanding resources from other jurisdictions or even from private companies for generator, tent rentals, and stuff like that. Depending on the size of the incident, this section might have a couple different things. Time unit, procurement unit, compensation/claims unit, and a cost unit. They help the operation run sustainably, legally, and well documented, most importantly. In some incidents, like those that involve crime scenes and terrorism, intelligence and investigations units might be activated. I/I sometimes noted. This function can be placed in operations or planning or command staff or even really as its own section. It depends on the type of incident and what's needed. So now a little discussion question. When might the intelligence investigation function be established as a branch under operations or as a fifth general staff section within the ICS structure or as part of the command staff? Think about some options, pause the video. If you need more time, throw your ideas in the comments if you like, and then we'll continue. ICS and incident response in general relies on a lot of tools. Some important tools you should have available at the incident include things like Emergency Operations Plan, or EOP, agency procedures, maps, and then a couple of important forms as well. These keep communications clear and decisions documented. Let's get into that a little bit more. ICS forms are incredibly important. They're nice and standardized, and so you can practice with them a little bit so that you're ready to use them when you need them. They track objectives, they assign tasks, they document resources, they communicate changes, and they're nice and clear so that when, briefings and analyses happen after the incident is complete, you can get a good picture for what happened when and why. You'll see these in briefings or when moving between shifts, and later on in some of your department's trainings, you may see some that were completed after the fact of an incident to highlight certain details. So now we'll talk about ICS Form 201, which is the initial incident briefing tool. It includes map and situation, current objectives, resources on scene, and an organizational chart. This form often becomes the first IAP until the planning division gets up and running and completes their IAP. Occasionally, the ICS Form 201 serves as the initial IAP, like we said, and this is normal. This form helps incoming responders understand what's happening quickly at a glance, what your resources are, and even if you're not the one filling it out, reviewing it helps you understand your role. Even if you're not the one contributing to the development of the formalized IAP, as part of the planning section, review what's available, understand how they work. Oftentimes we'll use these in a variety of ways, and oftentimes for large events there will be an IAP that is developed even before, like a concert, major event, that you'll be able to review and you'll be able to learn from. And being familiar with these sorts of forms and documentations really help you understand what's missing, what's needed, and what is available when you arrive on something that wasn't planned, like a major earthquake or a fire, and you see these forms. So if you see them, review them. That's always helpful. So let's practice. We're going to look at the Emerald City flood scenario in your manual, or in the notes, and we'll sketch out an incident layout. Fill out the organizational charts as you would, list and track the resources that are available, the incoming, etc. And if you're watching this on your own, take that piece of paper you used for the previous activity and try completing a simplified version of this. Do a little sample outline. This is going to be a little bit of practice in filling out the ICS Form 201 and using that information from a scenario. Complete the missing elements in the form, right? Incident briefing for the Emerald flood situation, and create a sketch. Identify and locate the incident facilities, create an organizational chart, and then we'll get into section 6, which is resource summary, right? In column 1, you're going to list the resources ordered, base this list on not just your current needs, but your anticipated needs. Identify resources by position, their level of training, or what type class they are, and indicate if the resource is on scene now or at the time that it should arrive. Indicate the location where the resource is or will be assigned, And once we have that, each group will select a spokesperson to present their work in about 30 minutes. There's a bunch of other commonly used ICS forms. Some of them are here. The larger the incident, the more helpful it is to have standardized forms for individual components of this. Air support, or, safety messages, check-in lists, incident objectives, right? Some of them are radio frequency assignment worksheet. Some of them are, more or less needed across standard incidents. Some of them are, more relevant to more niche specific incidents. So great job getting through this one. You've completed the functional areas and positions lessons. This was a very helpful and important one. You should now be able to describe the functions of organizational positions within the incident command system, and I think that that's really helpful. There was a lot of good things here. You should hopefully also identify the ICS tools needed to manage an incident and demonstrate a little bit of familiarity with ICS Form 201. In the next lesson, we'll talk about incident briefings, how they're structured and what gets shared. This is one of my favorite ones, and we'll talk about how they help field teams like yours stay on mission. There's a lot of good things in that one that you can apply to a lot of different things. So here's a question for the comments. What ICS role do you think is most important in a mass casualty incident, and why? Let us know in the comments below. There's no wrong answer, but it's a great way to think through how pieces fit together and understand how other people think through these sorts of puzzles. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you found the video useful. It doesn't cost you anything, but it helps us out a ton. We'll see you in the next lesson.